True story of the Bilderberg Group, the late great USA, America, Freedom to Fascism. These are just a few of the hundreds of powerful documentary films and books available at truthnews.us and prisonplanet.com. When you visit prisonplanet.com, you can connect to our amazing online store. Whether you're looking for survival and wellness products like Berkey water filters, or you would like a book on the history of the Federal Reserve, we've got the most well-researched and documented titles, all available at prisonplanet.com. Or if you'd like, you can give the InfoWars store a call at
media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he.
But let's say tomorrow the law stated that we had to use torture.
Don't be absurd.
Why, it used to be the law to be the law again. It's only a matter of principle. Then you would use torture if the law said so.
You're using an extreme example.
All right, then. What's your limit? How much injustice would you stand for to satisfy the people we work for?
Good evening. I would like to report on the state of our war against the American people. We're mounting a sustained campaign to crack down on every American and every person of every faith and every nation, and to bring them to justice. All missions are being executed according to plan, without warning or provocation. Americans are being swept up in an international dragnet. Thousands of FBI agents are on the trail of other citizens here and abroad. It has everything to do with hate and evil and murder and prejudice. America is strong.
Federal agents, we are armed!
What would you do if you knew all the things we knew? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn and walk away? What would you do if you...
And I stood up for you, didn't I? Perhaps someday I could help you. Someday I could tell you the nature of evil. No, man. Because if I did, then I'd be out of a job. Let's go to work.
That's wrong. Would you stand tall and strong? Or would you turn and walk?
I see a message from the government. Like every day, I watch it and listen and call them all suckers. They wanted me about Osama or whatever. Picture me buying the scam. I said never. You in tune to a hard truth soldier spitting. I stay committed, give I lose commission. It's all a part of fighting devil state mind control, and all about the battle for your body, mind, and soul. And now I'm hoping you don't close your mind so they shape you. Don't forget they made us slaves, gave us AIDS and raped us. Another Bush season mean another war for profit. All in secret so the public never fit to stop it. The Illuminati, 666, all connected. Stole the votes, they control the race and take elections. It's the Skull and Bones Freemason Kill Committee. See the dragon get in every city.
What would you do if you...
What would you do? That's the way the courtroom game is played around here, isn't it, Counsel? It's not the way I play. Let me tell you something, pal. Half the time we don't know which side the law is on. That's the way the wheels of justice turn in this town. And they're the only wheels we got. You have to excuse me, I got some police work to do.
Now ask yourself, who's the one with the most to gain? 09/11, couldn't stand his name. Now even waving flags like they lost their mind. Everybody got opinions, but don't know the time. Cause America's been took, it's plain to see. The oldest trick in the book is making enemy. A phony evil so the government can do its dirt and take away your freedom, lock and load, beat and search. Ain't nothing changed but more colored people locked in prison. These pigs still beat us, but it seems we forgetting. But I remember 4 September how these devils do it. Giuliani, ask Diallo how he doing. We in the streets, holler jail to the thief, follow. Waving flags, bring these dragons to their knees. Oil, blood, money, make these killers ride cold. Suspicious suicide, people dying, never told. It's all a part of playing God, so you think we need them. While being Ashcroft, take away your rights to freedom. Bear witness to the sickness of these dictators. Hope you understand the time, brother, cause it's major.
What would you do if you...
Haven't you ever had any doubts about enforcing unjust laws?
It's not for us to judge the law, but
to enforce it. Yes, I knew you would say that. You never experienced that, right? You never felt that you were an instrument, that you were sort of an executive looking after the interest of whomever happens to be in power?
So now you asking why my records always come the same. Keep it real, ain't no fillers blinging. Mine eyes seen the glory of the coming of the beast. So every story, every word I'm saying, peace. See, you could witness the Illuminati body count. Don't be surprised, these is devils that I'm talking about. You think a couple thousand lies mean the killers? Nigga, I swear to God, we the ones. Ain't no villains, or any other word they think to demonize a country. Ain't no terror threat unless approval rating slumping. So I'ma say it for the record, we the ones that planned it. Ain't no other country took a part, had their hand in. Just a way to keep you scary so you think you need them. Praising Bush while that killer take away your freedom. How many of us got discovered but ignore the symptoms? Talking loud but ain't nobody saying it. And with the Fourth Amendment gone, eyes are on the first. That's why I'm spitting cyanide each and every verse. I see the Carlisle group and Harris bank accounts. I see them plead the fifth each and every session now. And while Reichstag burns, see the public buy it. I see the profile and see the media's compliance. War's good for business, see the vicious make a savior. Hope you understand the time, brother, cause it's major.
What would you do if you knew all the things we knew? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too? And then what if you saw all of the things that's wrong? Would you stand tall and strong?
My friends, we are live. Thank you so much for joining us today on this maiden voyage of the new live fourth hour. Anything new works out bugs as thousands of you log on to watch the video feed as we tweak the settings there. You can also listen right now to the audio alone without the video if you're having any problems at Infowars.com. Alan Watt, again, is our guest for the rest of this hour. His powerful website is cuttingthroughthematrix.net. And we've got a whole bunch of phone calls we're going to be going to here in the next 10 minutes for the balance of the show. Alan, the New World Order system is being exposed like never before. Some would say that the establishment means to have revelation of the method, and I think they have done that, obviously, through the culture and the media. But I think it is going a little faster than they wanted. I see real signs of distress within them. And I see this system they've set up, this formula, as controlling them as well, kind of a wild beast, just a kind of hive mind or institutionalized system that is now even out of their control. Your take on that statement, Alan Watt?
Yeah, well, one thing we must always understand, these people don't play politics. They say they make an agenda. They do not compromise. That's the one thing all down through history. They do not compromise. They get their way or nothing. However, they have to, at this very stage, sort of use the double-edged sword because they want a world. You see, children are already growing up with this conditioning of globalism. They have been for many, many years now. And so they have to come out in the open and as though it's the normal thing to do, to be global nowadays. And at the same time, they do know there's still a generation left who are a bit older but have the histories here, who remember and lived and grew up in the older system, and they don't want to go into this new sort of Soviet type of globalism where we're all monitored, watched, and prodded and chipped and all the rest of it. So they expect trouble, and that's why they published their 90-page report from the top think tank of the Department of Defense in Britain. It was published in The Guardian, 9 pages. I've got the 90 pages on my website. And this top think tank for the Department of Defense also is the top one for NATO countries, all NATO countries, the US, Canada, and so on. And they foresee nothing but escalating riots from now on up to the next 30 years. And they're prepared to use all means necessary to suppress these riots. Now, what's going to make the average person riot? Well, we can see what's going to happen because now they want full control of all your food supply. They have it, your water supply, your energy for keeping warm, everything that you are dependent upon.
Well, Alan, I want to get more into their control grid and then what the world will look like if they have their way after we take some calls.
But specifically, I want your expert opinion because I really do respect your research. It's very, very accurate in all the areas I've looked into, and of course meshes with a lot of things I learned independently, and then I've learned some stuff from you as well, as we all learn from each other in this, I guess, college of awakening that's happening to counter the elites. The elites then respond to us, and I've had them respond to me openly that, well, you're one of us because you are thinking, and then join our system. But then I don't want to join their inbred sadistic system saying people are animals, survival of the fittest, that this is how you become dominant, this is how you become the King Rex, the Rex Lex, or the law of the kings over the slaves is by feeding on the slaves, by feeding on the cattle. I see the elites. They do make mistakes. Their self-replicating system has been well-oiled and art form, works well because they have the wealth amassed. And when they do make mistakes, they never compromise and keep coming. But where have they made mistakes? Because they're not gods. They do make mistakes. This is a topic I've never really heard you talk about. Where have they made mistakes and then readjusted their program?
They tried right after World War I to bring in the League of Nations to its full strength as a global government. People were still too nationalistic. They had their independent cultures. They wanted to hang on to them. And so it fitted back into the background again. Still powerful organization, but in the background. H.G. Wells talked about it before World War II. He said, the people haven't given up all their rights. They're not war-weary enough. He said, we needed another war, a Second World War. And sure enough, they got their Second World War. And right after that, after they signed the last of the main charter in California for the United Nations, the phoenix bird of the League of Nations, they wrote lots of books. I have them all here, printed at the time by the big players, talking about the need to push immediately for global government while the people were still war-weary. But it still didn't take off enough, and so they went back to the drawing board and said, well, by the year 2010, 2012, we can bring the United Nations up through perpetual conflict until it's the only organization which can come forward and promise the people they'll take care of them, the big paternal United Nations. Now, the United Nations is not a democratic institution. It's unelected by the populace of any country. It's a dictatorial institution, and it's already, and it has been for many years, passing laws which every government in the world simply takes and then passes into their national laws. They're already been built up to be the major country of the world. Now, remember, the Department of Agriculture of the United Nations has stated a few years ago that food is a weapon, and food has been used in the past as a weapon to control people. That's an ancient technique. And you're noticing now, oh my goodness, that there's massive wheat shortages across the world. Then you go in, you link that to the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and they have dozens and dozens of think tanks working on this global coming crisis, and they have had this for years, how to make it into a crisis. So they're building up the United Nations to be the big paternal figure that's going to take over from the national governments and promise to take care of you. They've laid their groundwork well. They've had 100 years now of gradually pushing themselves up to the top, and they will use food as a weapon. Now, the Department of Agriculture at the UN stated that eventually all food for the entire world will come to them, and they will dish out so much per country, per capita.
And, of course, that's being done, even under the same names or similar names, same bureaucracy internationally set standards for the animal ID, the premises ID. One chicken dies, you get $2,000 a day fines if you don't report it. Inspectors without warrants on your property. But then the big poultry producers, they buy one tag per 1,000 chickens for $10, but the small producers have to have one $10 tag per chicken or per pig, which then bankrupts them. All of this being pushed in, all of this happening, the diabolical control grid going into place.
Yes. And also, when they dish out food to nations, and that's coming, they stated it's up then to the national leaders to keep their populations below a specific figure because they will not be given extra rations. Population control.
So they're now artificially introducing this because now Big Agra has more than half of world food production. and the tolerances between what is a famine and what is a fat year are so small that they have easily gone in and created, and they brag about this, the atmosphere that has allowed this to happen. Then they say, oh, we've got to have more UN, more international funding to feed the poor third world, and they really use that money for eugenics.
Yes, they do. There's no doubt about it. They've decided a long time ago, and that's what the Human Genome Project was about, finding out who is superior, inferior, what type they'll allow to come into the New World Order, and those who must perish. And you got to understand, their religion is much, much older than even Egypt. It goes back even into India and Hinduism. And in Hinduist philosophy, at the end of the great cycle, the big age, they call it the oceans of theosophy. That's how they call it. Then all the inferior types die off. And they must die off because only the superior types can be allowed to go through.
It's holding back the planetary evolution in the whole neo-Darwinistic / yogi system.
Yes. Darwin simply reiterated something that he and his family and all their members down through the ages had already believed in. That's right.
I want to go to some calls, but let's specifically get into the UN world government agenda, how far off you think they are. We know there's soft kill poisoning, the water, the vaccines. Every new birth control always sterilizes or screws women up. It's always an accident. The government then gives them liability protection. We know that's, the Gates with Warren Buffett have given over $80 billion, and the Gates family heads up Planned Parenthood. IBM is a eugenics front. That's mainstream history. All of this going on, but when are they going to really start exterminating the third world? And we know AIDS is a soft kill weapon, but it's more of a test of how it would spread from the info I've got.
Yes, we're going to get hit, I think, with a whole bunch of things at the same time because they want total chaos, the appearance of total chaos to create ultimate terror worldwide, so that we'll truly come to our knees and beg them to help us. And then they'll come forward with all their plans, which they just happen to have drawn up already.
And that's why they've built all over the world giant underground bases, public everywhere, but in the U.S., because we're the most dumbed down, huge elite compounds for hundreds of thousands of people to live for decades, underground railways all over the world, under the Atlantic, in Europe, so that they can carry all this out. This is their great dream. This is their excitement. And, of course, we see all the newest James Bond movies about killing people for their genetic information, or that was a James Bond before the last one. The latest one is about government-sponsored or establishment-sponsored terror for gain. But we have Moonraker, where the elite industrialist, the trillionaire, wants to kill the Earth's population while the elite go to space for a year while the world's population dies so they can come back and then build the utopia.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Margaret Thatcher talked about this because Man Alive program back in the late 70s, got wind of this agenda. All NATO countries signed a certain deal, it's still in effect, that when plague or nuclear fallout occurs over a certain area, they have to cordon off whole cities by three circles, and any individual trying to escape from his quarantined areas to be shot on sight. That's enforced now. Any person, any group of people who try to escape will be bombed with CS.
And they've recruited 26,000 preachers in the U.S., close to 500,000 truck drivers, 23,000 executives in InfraGard, all ready for this.
And Margaret Thatcher said, she was asked, what about you and your own class? And she said, well, we'll be fine. We have underground shelters for ourselves.
And that's why the elites all live in certain areas. A lot of elites live in Austin because out at Bergstrom there's an underground railway. This is classified, by the way, folks. Going out to Fort Hood. It nexuses into the Southwest. They admit these tunnel systems under D.C., the old Briar Green, all over the East Coast. A lot of their main bases are actually out under the Atlantic Ocean. And we have this from inside sources, but a lot of it's been leaked.
Yes, and Thatcher was asked, well, what's to stop the ordinary people from trying to break in and get in to escape and live in your bunkers and your underground shelters? And she said, we'll have special forces, SAS and others, manning all entrances, and they'll be told to shoot on sight.
Well, they admit what all of the public bases have. They have huge robotic turrets with nuclear blast-proof camera pods that pop up, with machine guns, howitzers in case you come in with a tank. They have multiple ones built into each redoubt, where there's level after level that pop up. Even if you assaulted it with tanks, more and more turrets just pop up. Then there's level after level of giant steel and concrete doors, where each level you blast through, there's more troops waiting for you inside. Yep. Then even if you were able to take one of those bases, which is near impossible, even with an armored battalion, they would then just jump into their mine shafts, go in their underground railways 1,000 miles away to another base, and then, of course, blow the tunnel behind them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is a long-term planning. It's been the Rand Corporation were in charge of boring the tunnels with those huge machines they have.
Hundreds of them bought in the early 1940s. Thousands of locomotive. What they declassified in the 50s tunneled 4 feet an hour. And what do you think thousands of giant tunnel locomotives have been doing, ladies and gentlemen? Swiss cheesing everything underground.
Yeah, they can go at 5 miles per hour now. These
particular 5
machines.
miles. Oh,
5 miles. Yeah. To any rock, to any kind of rock.
That's right.
Yeah.
I guess I was looking at the 50s models. You know, the declassified.
Yeah, the obsolete ones.
My God, over 1,000 vehicles. Last time I checked, this was like 6-7 years ago. That's what's on purchase orders. Imagine what's secret. What do 1,000 locomotives that can tunnel 5 feet an hour, mm-hmm. and let's say half of them are broken, or being worked on at one time? What do 1,000 locomotives, if you did that at 5 feet an hour, how much do you think they've tunneled, Alan?
I think they've been across the planet many times. As I say, it was, but they already had these machines in the 40s, late 40s, and these machines were using some kind of atomic type power.
That's right. They have atomic locomotion, so there's no gas in the tunnels.
Yes, and they can actually create so much heat without melting the superior alloy, but it will melt the rock as they pass through and form a solid casing around the tunnel. They don't have to go around and reinforce it when they pass through.
But now, of course, in Switzerland, they have underground bases for 2 years for the entire population. Russia has it for 1 year. But in the U.S., I grew up in Dallas, and they're still there. It says nuclear fallout shelter. I get to go with my family and die in the underground parking shelter. That's what Land of the Free, Home of the Brave gets. With our tax money, whose even public budget is bigger than the entire world's defense budgets together.
Yes. Well, there's no doubt the U.S. was given the mandate to take over from Britain because of its tax-based and its manpower-based factories and so on to build the machinery for this whole world domination structure.
And that's why they're so arrogant, is that imagine there's only, max 100 of these families. They've got about 3,000 servant families. Mm-hmm. For those that don't know, this is how history's always worked. Even in Babylon or Egypt, you have servant guilds where even the kings and queens and old oligarchs themselves kind of become like Chinese princesses that are like queen ants that are just tended. The real power is in the mechanism and the families that serve them. Alan, from your study, would you say that's accurate, the number of families and servant families we're dealing with?
I think so. Now, they have many, many helpers, the technocratic society with the scientific elite. They truly believe they don't need ordinary people anymore as long as they have the science.
Now, from my study, isn't the sub-technocratic elite is about 20,000, the upper technocratic elite is about 500, and then it plugs into larger bureaucracies of several thousand families, and then you have the prime directives going off of what the... How long ago from your study did the elites finally codify the current eugenics program that we are under? Because they do stick to plans. They don't seem to change them.
They never change their plans, no. Well, you can go back to the days of Thomas Malthus, who was the first one to come out on behalf of the elite.
Well, remember, the Morlocks, written 100 years ago, they live underground and control us, the slaves on the surface. But go ahead.
Yes, but Malthus worked for the British Crown and the British East India Company. And basically, the British East India Company was owned by the Crown.
Yes.
And it's all members of the royal family.
The only licensee for global oceanic trade.
Yes. And he stated there that they'd have to start culling the population soon. He was projecting into the future 100, 200 years. He painted this picture of us all living on top of each other. And the terrifying prospect that they saw was to be too many of the commoners, and we'd outbreed the elite.
And so they said, put us in tiny areas and then poison us, use biologicals to get rid of us.
Yes, he had it worked out, how to even infect certain types of parasites.
By the way, that was the 1750s.
Yes, and how to keep them at a minimal diet, malnourished, a certain type of diet, so they couldn't walk off to a new plantation to work. They'd be too weak. But
which goes back to the Japanese and British model that were very similar. How do the Japanese feed into this? Because analyzing the enemy attack profile, Alan Watt of cuttingthroughthematrix.net, I have noticed that that the Japanese have an even more advanced, more refined system, and it seems that they, I mean, this is an Anglo-American dominated enterprise, but it seems the Japanese have been given a place at the table.
There's no doubt. You have the old elite families, too, of Japan still well in control. And
they publicly say they had given fealty for 400 years with the Queen of England.
Yes, they have. And they also had the Jesuits in there who also helped them with their particular warrior-type clans and their battle strategies.
Let's talk about the Jesuits a little bit. Let's talk about how different groups fit into this.
But there's no doubt, again, all these different conflicting... Remember that this plan, which is ancient, has worked down through time. It uses whatever groups are handy.
But specifically, let's get into the Catholic Church and the Jesuits.
Yeah, the Catholic Church, there's no doubt about it. The Jesuits initially were taught... Now remember, Ignatius Loyola, or Loyal Fire Starter, really that's what it means, was captured by the papacy because he was raiding certain Catholic bands and plundering them. And he eventually had a meeting with the Pope, this prisoner. Whatever he said was very important because he came out as the first, as they call, Black Pope of the Jesuit Society. And he had been a member of the Alumbratos, which is simply the Knights Templar branch that eventually lived in Spain. So he was taught through the Knight Templars the strategy of using conflict, everlasting conflict.
Problem, reaction, solution, the dialectic. And then they also claimed they were fighting the Templars, didn't they, when they really weren't?
That's correct. And so... down through the ages, the Jesuits were masters at going into areas where they wanted to disrupt the society, plan rebellions, and even get in different sides fighting each other, blaming the other, while they would keep themselves clean. And they could go incognito, undercover, wear the clothes of the commoners. Some of them were even allowed to use wives and live in the same villages and houses.
So we see a lot of espionage going on. It was a clandestine, what we would call the CIA today.
And eventually, of course, during World War II, they blended with the CIA. Malachi Martin talked about that.
And they were working both sides, in the West and with the Nazis.
Yes, there's no doubt about that.
Say what, let's talk more about that and take calls after this quick break. We're going to take a break, and we will return on the other side with Alan Watt. I'm Alex Jones, and this is the one, the only Alex Jones Radio Network. Stay with us.